Well guys, The Eternals has officially finished its box office run, and the number is, well, depending on what you were looking for, either good, bad, disastrous, or above expectations. It can literally be anything. So let's talk about the final numbers and why it didn't perform as good as some of the other films that it can be compared to. Marvel's Eternals has officially ended its box office run without China with a total of $401.5 million. Now, this is a number that, when you really think about it compared to other MCU properties, it's not that impressive. But again, I think people are comparing it to the likes of the second and third Captain America film, the Iron Man films, the more popular things out there. Even Ant-Man, for example, made way more. But again, there's a couple factors in here that we do have to bring into this conversation, which of course, one being the pandemic. People are willing to risk it for Spider-Man. Not so much for things like the Eternals, which they're not sure about if they care about or not because they've never seen the characters and it's brand new things and they've heard some mumblings and it might not be their, type of thing because the whole ancient aliens thing and whatnot. The big takeaway for me is the fact that it ended with far less profit than other films. Obviously, Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and Shang-Chi being two big ones that are comparable to it. I would personally say Shang-Chi is more comparable because brand new. Venom, that still had its run. It's obviously more, but not on par with the first film. But again, it's a give or take depending on the scenario and how you look at it. In my opinion, I think the film did as good as you can expect. Most people were saying 400 million. And it's slightly past that. So it's got to be a success in everybody's eyes. Now, of course, if this wasn't the pandemic, it probably would have done way more, 6, 7, 800 million. If it released in China, it probably would have, done slightly more, or maybe it would have been the 6 to 800 million. But it's one of those things where we don't know if the Rotten Tomatoes thing affected it as well. And I think that's always going to linger with this film now. And it's always going to be brought up when you talk about this film as a success or a failure. And it doesn't matter who brings it up. It's just always going to be a topic, whether you're trying to say, well, it's bad because Rotten Tomatoes, or well, it's good because Rotten Tomatoes doesn't matter, or box office matters. This film is sort of going to be stuck in this discussion limbo forever now because it is the first ever MCU Rotten. It came out with Shang-Chi, but also did less and was reviewed into the ground with dislike and all sorts of problems that people point out. And who really knows if Marvel Studios will ever respond to this directly or do something crazy like not do a sequel after they commit to it or something. You never know. Things can always change. But to me, this, this kind of is on par with what I think many people expected in terms of box office. And that's really the end of the story. If you hit the box office goal, I don't think Marvel Studios cares much about the Rotten thing as much as they did before because they had a streak. But in the end, just move along and hopefully they fix whatever these characters had as problems for the sequel. Mainly the villain. Nobody even knew his name.